2022, we're still dealing with this crap. Look at this. According to the mayor of Haverhill, Stem and the two other shops currently open in Haverhill, CNA stores on Full Harvest Moons, are among the dealers across the state in a concerted effort to renege on agreements made with their host cities. We're talking about tonight Stem Haverhill versus the city of Haverhill. It's a shakedown. It's extortion. That's what I'm calling it. This is why our program sucks in Massachusetts. And this mayor, man, just the stuff that they're putting out there, just a bunch of bullshit. Got some two good guests. One who represents the small businesses in Massachusetts, cannabis businesses, maybe some of the larger ones too. But I note that he has a pretty good roster of businesses that are associated with his association, unlike some other ones. So we're happy to have him on the show tonight. We got two guests, and the other guest, she's coming back again on the show, Caroline Pineau. She is the owner of Stem Haverhill. She's suing the city of Haverhill, and it's about these extortion fees. Now, put in mind, each city and town in Massachusetts that opens a dispensary gets quite a bit of money from their host community agreement. Additionally, there's these things called impact fees. And impact fees are supposed to be almost like an insurance policy. Something really goes wrong, if there's extra costs to the city, they can get some extra money. But the city of Haverhill, to me, isn't doing that. They're making up stuff. And you can see it with statements like this, kind of where they're coming from with their reefer madness. So we're going to bring up David O'Brien and Caroline Pineau, the owner of Stem Haverhill. What's going on?
Hey, Mike.
Hello. Hi, Mike. Was anything I said wrong about the introduction about what's going on right now?
I think you pretty much nailed it in layman's terms.
Hopefully. I try to cut right to the chase. And, so you're suing the city of Haverhill right now. And there was just, the beginning parts of this where the city of Haverhill is acting like they won the whole court case because they won this they kind of won the preliminary thing. But from what the judge said, we're going to bring that up on the screen too. We have that. But the judge basically, if you read the statement from the judge, I'd be very nervous if I was the city of Haverhill right now with your lawsuit. What's happening? Well, tell us what's going on with that.
Yeah, so I think, if you have read any of the recent articles that came out about this, about the judge's ruling, the judge uses the word that he was constrained in his decision. So I think the judge's own words basically indicate that we have a strong case. If we didn't have a strong case, I don't think he would have used that terminology. But that more fact finding is needed. It's a high burden to have to prove a motion for summary judgment. We knew that going into this, that it was going to be, an uphill battle to win the suit this early on. However, we always anticipated bringing this case to its fruition, and the next step is trial. So we fully anticipate that in 2023, we will be going to a trial on this in Newburyport Superior Court.
Now, the judge did say quite a bit in his summary finding. He said, we're encouraged. Actually, that was a statement from you guys, but he actually, I'm trying to find his actual statements because
down at the bottom, if you scroll down there. Yep.
Did I already pass them?
Oh, yeah, you already passed right there. To be sure,
there it is. You got it.
Yeah, to be sure.
I'll read it. To be sure, the city's efforts to date to justify the nearly $700,000 in excess impact fees in its 2-year period as reasonably related to anticipated or actual costs of the city has borne a result of STEM's operations appear somewhat anemic to the court. That was what the judge wrote. So he's basically saying, like, yeah, you guys really don't have much here. It's anemic. That's not good. He also said that he added McNabb's list of shortcomings. This is your people know who she is, Dr. McNabb, who testified, and she has a list of shortcomings in the city's expense list, and her critique may eventually carry the day. So he's basically saying, like, it looks like McNabb's stuff, the stuff that's being submitted, may win this case. He's basically saying that right there, right?
Yeah, we take it as a huge win that he validated Dr. Marion McNabb's nearly 700-page report, in which she basically found no link between what the city is alleging for documented costs, anticipated or actual, has any relation to STEM. So the fact that the judge is pointing out that at trial, her report may well carry the day is very significant, and we think a really good sign.
Yeah, David, you should definitely jump in here too now as well.
Yeah, so Mike, I mean, you have followed our work, I think, pretty studiously over the years. We've done 2 separate reports on this as Mass CBA. The first one was for community impact fees collected in its first year was $12 million. I think we issued that in the spring of 21. And now our latest report that we put out earlier this year, I think it was earlier this year, the responsive communities had collected over $52 million, most of which they really couldn't justify. So this isn't just a Haverhill problem, it's a statewide problem, which it was why the Cannabis Control Commission, individual commissioners, Steve Hoffman, Shailene Title, Britta McBride, Kay Doyle, Jen Flanagan, I think to a person, they all agreed that the legislation, which finally got signed by the governor back in August, and the commission is in the process of writing regulations around, they knew that it needed to be changed and someone needed to be in charge. The legislature put the commission in charge of being sort of the judge and jury on this. The rules were always that a fee needed to be reasonably related, and that Haverhill put together that joke of a consulting memo to justify costs. And I sat through the summary judgment hearing a couple of weeks ago now, I guess, Caroline. And the argument that the city makes that they're not sure what the costs are, I can say this because I'm not involved in the lawsuit. They're unsure what the cost might be, so we'll just keep your money till we figure it out. In essence, is what they said, is bullshit. You're absolutely right. And there are so many people in this industry rooting for Caroline to win this thing. I think the communities, there's a reason why the city of Boston gave all the money back for HCA fees that they collected from the individual companies that had been operating within city limits. They know there was no extra expense. There's a reason why other cities stopped charging it. There's a reason why other communities are considering stop charging it and possibly giving the money back. Many communities still have this money set aside. So giving the money back won't be that big a deal. And we encourage every municipality to see the light. They don't have to say they were wrong, but they do need to write the check.
It's so I'm glad you brought that up too, because so many cities and towns are cutting back on the expenses. They know that this has been a rigged game for the rich and hurting small business owners, and it's not helping customers. It's not helping anything to be just charging exorbitant fees on top of what are already high taxation and the host community agreements. So like Boston's giving money back, and this guy is going like well beyond anyone else. And I'm calling him this guy because I think it's the mayor of Haverhill that's like 100% responsible. And, you know, we're actually right now we're working on a few things, the Young Jerks. One of the things, I'm going to lay it out of the bag tonight for our audience. One thing that we're hoping to do, and we don't even know if this is a done deal. And the only reason I'm announcing it tonight is because this mayor has pissed me off so much. I've decided to include him. We did a Young Jerks award show a few years ago, and it was awesome, right? You know, prior to COVID happening. And it was a great time. We've been holding off on doing another live event like that because of COVID and things like that. And just, you know, life. But we're thinking about actually doing another one. We're looking into a venue, and I'm going to throw it up right now. I want to ask our audience too, because, you know, we usually do the best of, you know, the best politician, the best electeds, the best businesses. But I think sometimes we need to do sometimes the worst. And I think the mayor of Haverhill is he snagged himself an award nomination from us, the Young Jerks Award nomination for the worst elected politician in the state of Massachusetts. So I just want to throw that out there. Do people think that's okay? And if not him, who's worse? Who's worse right now in Massachusetts? Because this to me is really, it's gross. It's really disgusting that he's throwing up people to claim that it's an opioid like crisis that they're worried about, and they're just not dealing with the reality. It's like Trumpism. It's like you're making stuff up just so you can keep the money. That's what it is. You want to keep the money and you're making up stuff. And am I right on this? Do you guys both agree with me on that? Carolyn, what do you got to say on it?
I think the discouraging part of this, and something that I'd kind of like to segue into, is the importance of what the state designates as economic empowerment applicants. When I went through this process, I was one of 122 participants in the state that participated in the economic empowerment program. And it's not like there's a million of us. There's 122, a limited amount. And the policy making around the nature of HCAs very much is supposed to help economic empowerment applicants. And this mayor is doing the exact opposite of what that intentionality of the law was, and what the law says, that cities and towns are supposed to work with economic empowerment applicants, social equity applicants. Even in the new law that was recently passed and is now in effect, cities and towns are mandated to write up how they're going to work with social equity and economic empowerment licensees. So I find it very disingenuous in the city's comments, and particularly their comments of late, and haven't even reached out. So I think, being that I'm the only economic empowerment applicant in Haverhill and I'm having to sue my community in order to get them to follow the law, I think shows the very disingenuous nature of all of the commentary that they would like the public to believe about, me possibly reneging on an agreement that I made with Haverhill. I've never said that I would not pay these fees. I've asked for proper documentation as required by law, and we've still yet to get it to this day. And what we have received instead is a manufactured report. And the only reason we received it is because we filed litigation, and we had to wait 3 months for it after it was due. The new law says that the cities and towns have just 30 days to produce this documentation. We are still waiting 5 months after our second annual license renewal to receive this documentation from the city of Haverhill. So they're not going to be able to get away with it in the future moving forward. The legislature has really zipped up the language around what is permissible and what is not. But that does not mean that the previous law did not still make mention of this. The city of Haverhill is just trying to, I think, play in the gray area because they don't want to give the money back.
Right. Do you agree with that, David?
I do. Yeah. I mean, their sham of a consulting report that they had done. It's laughable. I don't know how else to refer to it.
Reefer madness.
Yeah. It's. On the one hand, from a policy level, I get that there was all this fear in the beginning. I helped found Mass CBA, but my sort of first step into cannabis was back in the spring of 2017 when I worked for Weed Maps doing East Coast government relations. And the fear at the municipal level at the time was this may result in a lot of extra cost for us. So we need this insurance policy, as you referred to it, to cover us. And that was all well and good, but it was always supposed to be reasonably related up to 3%. The problem was law firms, KP Law in particular, went to all these small municipalities, did a cut and paste HCA and said, round it up to the full 3%, collect the 3%, make them chase you. And that's exactly what's happening in communities. The smart communities are getting it, and they're saying, you know what, let's sit down and have a conversation. So let's sit down and have a conversation. Will be required, because every year upon renewal, the commission's going to say to Caroline and say, hey, your HCA is out of whack in Haverhill, go fix it. and we'll go tell the city on your behalf, you need to fix this because it's not compliant going forward. So there's a bit of leverage, but we're hoping that education and shame will wake people up at the municipal level to doing the right thing that they should have done years ago.
It's so funny because I look at this as like for a layman term. Again, I love that because I try to simplify things. This is like a security deposit. You rented a place, you got a security deposit. Now you're moving out of the place and they kept your security deposit and they won't tell you what needed to be fixed. They won't give you any information. And they're like 5 months later, they're like, oh, well, we're still figuring out what you owe us. Like, that's not how things work. Like, there has to be a proper accounting, and they're just making it up as they go along. You can just totally see it. And they're blaming things that are crazy, like that the teen usage has gone up, and that's insane.
How do you first of all, if you could, how do you prove that? What was the baseline? What was it to begin with, and what did it go up to? Oh, well, kids say they're using it more. Come on.
Yeah, and I just want to go on the record that we have not sold cannabis to a single minor. It's 21 plus, and we have one of the most highly regulated retail establishments in the state. So I'm with David. Where's the proof of that?
Yeah, and most science that we've seen on legalization in other states shows that, like Colorado and California, that the teen use has gone down when you've legalized. You've made it uncool. You made it a thing that old people do, not, young kids anymore. So it's not rebelling. So that's what the science shows. So I don't know where they're coming up with that BS.
Yeah. And I think, we only want what everyone wants. It's for all cities in the Commonwealth to follow the law. And while this is a legal matter, policy also matters, as David indicated. And this shouldn't be up. This should be up to the 1.6 million voters that voted to legalize cannabis, to sell it, to process it, to manufacture it, and to also economically empower. And we are one of the few women-owned businesses in the state. And retail establishments, and also the only economic empowerment applicant. So no one should be treated like this, but let alone someone in an area of disproportionate impact, which the legislation is supposed to help uplift and economically empower. Haverhill's really working against its own interest here. The law was designed to help Haverhill economically. And I think it just shows that HCAs have been flawed from the get-go. The CCC and the legislature definitely recognized that there was a gap in language and clarity, and they have made concerted efforts to fix that. So it'll be interesting to see when the CCC releases its new regulations surrounding this. And David can kind of speak more to what's to come from them. But it's going to only make it more and more difficult for cities and towns to get away with this legal extortion. And I think KP Law is probably trying to hold on for dear life.
They're like holding the dam with you.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that. Like, it's so funny because they know it's leaking. They know that, like, I feel like he's an outlier. Like, I feel like most municipalities, when they get that kind of pushback, especially where they're getting sued, I don't think that they're going to go the way that Mayor James has gone. Like, he seems like he's an outlier. Do you feel kind of like that he's kind of like on his own? Like, nobody is going this hardcore on the impact fees at this point, I feel like. Am I wrong on that? What do you think? You guys are the experts. What do you think?
I don't think any communities are going this hardcore on it. But no operator has raised their head above the firing line like Caroline has to stand up for her own rights. I mean, I was talking to her earlier today, and this whole notion that in order to just be in business and not have to overpay for some made up impact that you don't have on your host community, you have to sue and spend money just to sort of get back what's yours. It's annoying. It's annoying, and it's troubling. And to Caroline's point, she spoke of the 100+ economic empowerment applicants that are in the pipeline, and there's over 600 or 700 social equity applicants that are in the pipeline that have gone through. I think now they're on their third cohort. Only about 24 of those, Mike, you should know, are open for business. Economic empowerment, social equity, some women owned, some veteran owned. When you add in DBE and disbanded business enterprise, it may go up to 3 or 4 dozen, but it is not a huge list. So this is a rock star businesswoman who used to own a yoga studio and did very well with that, starting this business, fighting her neighbors to open her business where she is. And then the city comes down on you and says, hey, you owe us for this and don't ask any questions, little girl. Like literally, little girl. Like she's a young woman. She has 2 children. She has a husband. She's active in the community. Like, don't fuck with her. You know, she's very good at what she does. And for a misogynistic government to sort of throw it back at her is really appalling.
With the Young Jerks, we're speaking to Caroline Pineau from Stem Haverhill and David O'Brien with the Mass CBA. Did I say that right? Well, I just removed him. I don't know what I did that for. Okay, I'm back. I'm pressing too many buttons on the production studio here, but I want to thank you both for being here tonight. I also wanted to ask a question about something else the city made a statement on. You know, it's basically about they're making it look like, you know what, maybe I should just read it directly from them because I know that they posted it right in the story. I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at the wrong thing, but basically they were saying, they made it seem like you're not willing to settle with them, that there's an all, or I think they use the words all or none. Do you want to make any comments on that?
Yeah, that's what they say. I find their comments extremely disingenuous that they're willing to negotiate. They say they're willing to negotiate, but we've yet to hear a legitimate offer. So I would turn it back to the question, what is their offer? But yeah, I think, you know, to the extent that the city would be willing to speak further, I mean, I'm all ears if there's a good faith offer. Like David said, I am a young mom of 2 beautiful children here in Haverhill. My husband and I live in this community. We donate to charities because we feel like it, not because anyone tells us we have to do so. We're very active in our community, and we think that our community should simply follow the law. I think our reputation in this business community and what we care about is very apparent. And I just don't understand why the city has doubled down on a woman-owned economic empowerment applicant to make a case as to why they should keep their fees. And I think they've not only doubled down legally, but also personally. And I just think, you know, we're doing good work. We're working with people. We're uplifting our employees. We're giving them incredible opportunities and doing a lot of other creative projects in the community through the good of cannabis. So it's just very disheartening. And so I find those comments very disingenuous.
Yeah, it's definitely the people of Haverhill don't feel this way. This is what's interesting, where the government acts one way and the people of Haverhill, because we could see it on the Facebook post. We've, you know, supported you with the protest in the past just to get open way back. And we felt like, it's funny for me because I wasn't sure how Haverhill would act, because I kind of, you know, I grew up in Byfield, Newbury, Mass. And we used to go to Haverhill. We had a lot of friends in Haverhill. We played sports against Haverhill. But one of my earliest memories from Haverhill was my younger brother struck out like 10 kids in a little league game, and the moms attacked him. It was crazy. Like, there was he didn't get in a fight with the other team. He got in a fight with the other team's mothers. Like, it was like, he's like 12. So like, we got run out of town because my brother was too good of a pitcher back then. So like, Haverhill's always been a town that's kind of like, you know, a little bit, you know, tough. It's a tough town. Let's put it that way. And so I didn't know how they would feel about cannabis. And every time I see, especially around STEM and you, they were like all out. Like, it was like all positive. And you showed me some of the comments, even, you know, lately, from some of the things that you've done just from the community. And people support you big time. And I don't think they support the mayor as much as they support you on social media, at least from what I see. Do you kind of feel that way too, Caroline?
Yeah, I feel really supported by this community. I think through proper education, and now, we're in our third year of business with anecdotal, empirical data that there's been no issue. I think people feel a lot more comfortable with cannabis in their community, and it recognized that it was here well before legalization, and we're not adding anything new to the community. I just think it's very interesting. Like that this kind, you had the comment on the screen, the bring a crisis of opioid-like proportions. What are the pharmacies in town doing in terms of impacts? Are they being called dealers by the mayors of their communities? What are they doing for youth education? I just think it's an outdated prohibitionist mindset, and it's running out of fashion because people know that it's nonsensical, and they're not buying into it anymore. I don't think that the mayor's commentary, his positioning, is relevant anymore, and people are getting sick of it.
And in the courts, because the mayor, they're not listening to the mayor in the court case. They're listening to Marion McNabb, the doctor, who they tried to keep out, and the judge found her to be a very competent expert witness. He praised her. So I mean, he also said she appears to have sufficient qualifications to offer testimony on the subject matter. I mean, this is going to be a very interesting court case. When is this, like, when do you expect to see the rest of the trial happen, and what's your expectations for it from both of you? Let's start with David first.
I'd like it to start tomorrow, but I don't think it's timely yet. Mike, it's also worth noting, while I am proud to stand behind, stand next to, hold her on our shoulders as a representative of industry in this fight, she didn't go looking for this battle. They came at her and said, give us another check, keep giving us money. And she said, wait a second, this doesn't add up. Like, I want to push back. Show me the receipts, is what we say in the industry. And after the governor signed the bill back in August, I happened to be talking to one of the smaller medical, now adult use companies, smaller to medium-sized companies, Massachusetts born and raised company. I said, what are you going to save on the HCA? They said $1 million a year. I said, $1 million a year? That is, can you imagine what you could do with $1 million a year at any company, or $350,000, $400,000 a year? You can do with it what you want, because it's your business. That's the point. Somebody else shouldn't decide what they do with your money and make up like reasons to pay more police, because, well, we had to do the math out of the budget and say we're buying holsters. It's such bullshit. I mean, it's such a stretch. So I don't know when it's being planned. Caroline has more insight into that, but I'll be in the pews, as they say, for the trial.
And what do you have to say, Caroline?
Yeah, so the trial, we are very hopeful, will take place next year. We're hoping to get scheduled for that shortly. And so I'll keep you posted on when that gets scheduled up. But essentially, we're just asking for our fees back, because there have been no documented costs associated with our business that we have seen. We have given the city ample opportunity to present that information. They have not been able to do so. And that's what a jury or a judge will decide ultimately. And I think that it's important for our industry to take a stand. This is not something I really enjoy doing. There's many other things I'd prefer to be doing with my time, but because it's the right thing to do, I'm going to keep charging forward with it. It's important. It matters to what we're trying to accomplish with our business, so that we can pay our employees more money, so that we can invest in other business ventures with our staff, so that we can continue to economically participate in an engaged manner in the Haverhill community. These are all things that the initial legislation was created to uphold and enhance, yet we're just fighting for the ability to be able to truly, have access to that money and be able to do what it was intended to do. Now, if there had been all of these crazy expenses, again, we would have paid them. But there just haven't been. They haven't materialized. And we just want the city to follow the law, plain and simple. There's no documented costs. Give us our money back, and we can all continue focusing on better things.
Part of the problem, Mike, is when KP Law went out there and cut and pasted all these HCAs for all their communities, everybody started at 3% of gross. It was just max it out at 3%, and then we'll deal with the details later. When in fact, what you should do is start at 0 and say, this is what I think you cost me, and then have a conversation about it. I have not met a single licensed operator in the state, whether they're a single store operator like Caroline or a vertical in a medical company that's been around for 8 or 10 years, that doesn't say, I will pay my fair share and then some. But this notion of you have to go to them and say, mother, may I, on the 3% you've already paid them, and say, hey, I don't really think you proved to me how you spent my money. And they're like, yeah, well, we did. Like, wait a second, start at 0 and add it up. It's closer to thousands of dollars, perhaps tens of thousands of dollars, but not hundreds of thousands of dollars in every community. And I don't know if you remember the story from Northampton when Netta opened. Northampton actually double charged them for the police details. The Globe wrote a story about it. It's like, well, that was supposed to be included in the 3%. What are you doing? Right. So it's like
there's a lot of double dipping happening.
A lot of double dipping going on.
As Dr. McNabb points out in her report, there's a lot of double dipping going on in the city of Haverhill's MGT analysis report that they manufactured and pawned off as the required documentation. So that will all get taken care of and dissected at trial. So I'm really confident that we will prevail and get all of our money back when we get there. But I just think, how can you, as the city of Haverhill, how can you economically empower an economic empowerment applicant if you are extorting them just because you can? That just seems against the very essence of what this whole program, the legislation, was the intention of it all. So I just want to keep highlighting that, because I just don't know why they're doubling down on this. Yeah,
it's weird too, because I'm glad you brought, we brought up too about, I want to read this. In her statement, Randazzo, this is the city of Haverhill's attorney, said they would accept something less than the amount it charged, saying it would agree to a mutual agreeable compromise. This is the kicker, though. It goes on. This is from WHAV.net. The kicker is the city's lawyer, however, did not detail what form a compromise would make. I found like that's so reckless at this point. You've had this first, this big hearing. You've heard the judge say you're probably going to lose this court case because your documentation is bullshit. You've got this witness against you that's an expert that's pointing out that your documentation is bullshitting, non-existent. It really looks like you're going to lose this court case, and you haven't even made an offer for a compromise. Like that to me seems really strange. Like that they should at least have made an offer to you. Don't you think so, Caroline, at this point?
Well, I can't comment too much on that, but what I can say is, while the city is saying that it's willing to negotiate, what is their offer? What is their offer? We'd be all ears.
David, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd love to be in the room for that and tell them they should start at 0, not 3% of what they've kept. I mean, you never negotiate against yourself, right? So to say, they're going to offer, let us keep 75% of the money, and then you say, no, how about 0? I mean, do they actually think they're going to be able to talk you into keeping half of this money? I mean, it's if they think they're justifying getting every penny, why would you offer something, right?
Yeah, I think they're listening to their attorneys at KP Law, and they've probably told all of their clients, KP Law, that they can get all of this money, this 3%, without having to document it. And now they're having to go back and scramble, and they're just probably mad their little anti-marijuana gravy train is coming to an end.
Let's
Yeah.
hope.
Yeah. Well, I wish you wish you the best of luck on this. And again, you're a hero for fighting this, Caroline, for
Yeah.
all the businesses, for the consumers, because we're all getting extorted in Massachusetts. It's so clear. The cost is too high. And this is a perfect example. To me, this mayor has raised his hand to be that guy, that we're going to nominate the worst politician. We may give you an award, Mayor James of Haverhill. Worst politician. I mean, that would be fun. That would be a fun party.
Well, I remain hopeful on this, Mike. People are capable of learning and changing their minds, and I am hopeful through this legal process that the city of Haverhill sees the light, as does every other community across the Commonwealth. Because if the court bears out or the city of Haverhill says, you know what, let's end this, here's your money back. I think or the court rules in STEM's in Caroline's favor, I think it's going to send shockwaves through the state, and everybody's going to the check writing pen in every community is going to be out.
Yeah, I think that would happen. What do you think, Caroline?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very hopeful that we will prevail at trial. I think the other really interesting thing to note is that under the new law, because I'm an economic empowerment applicant, the city of Haverhill actually receives an additional 1% in tax revenue from my business. And or in fees from the business instead of 3%. And that is because of the designation that I qualified for. And so they can't have it both ways. And in turn, we get zero added benefit. So I'd love some insight from the city on that component and how they're going to remain in compliance in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm sure you have some final thoughts tonight about this, or even just about what you're doing, or how people could reach out to you.
Yeah, anyone can reach out through STEM's Instagram page at STEM Haverhill. I manage that page, and we'll get right back to you. But we are just so grateful to have so much community support. It's not comfortable having to speak out about your host community, the community in which you live and your kids go to school. But because of the support that we've gotten from the cannabis industry, from our customers, and then from just friends and other elected officials in the community that stand with us, because we have felt that support so much, it's really enabled us to keep going. And we're fighting for ourselves and our business, but also because we believe that no one else should have to go through this. And we recognize that every other operator in the state, however big or small, is going through a similar battle. And a lot of these smaller operators like ourselves, they can't afford the legal fight. And so if we can all work together to try to get some resolution on this quickly, I think it's going to be the best thing for this industry, the best thing for consumers, and best thing for cannabis and ending the stigma here in Massachusetts.
Awesome. Carolyn Pineau from Stem Haverhill, the owner of Stem Haverhill. And David, I'm sure you have some final thoughts and how people can reach you as well.
Yeah, so we're at masscba.com, and if you want to read either of our two reports that we did, it's under the news tab. Lest we fall asleep at the switch, we got legislation passed after fighting for 5 years, particularly for the HCAs and the Social Equity Trust Fund. And we are further excited about the next regulatory round because the commission is in the throes of looking at what can be modified or reformed in the regulations, some of which is the legislation itself. So companies or individuals wanting to get involved with that with us, go to masscba.com and fill out the contact form.
Awesome. And you can see the report. I just posted it up there. You can see it on the screen there. Read the report. This is the Massachusetts Host Community Agreements Analysis 2.0. It just came out in June. It's worth reading. He's got two reports on this page. There's also a report from UMass Boston. This is all about the host community agreements, everything that we're talking about tonight. masscba.com. I want to thank you so much, David O'Brien, and I want to thank as well Carolyn Pineau for being on the show tonight.
Thanks so much for having us, Mike. It's fun as always.
Thank you. Oh, I just cut off David. I'm sorry. We're the Young Jerks. My name's Mike Crawford. I also wanted to just briefly thank Laura Saylor of the Mass Workers Party for supporting the Young Jerks. We have quite a few supporters on our Patreon page and midnightmass.substack.com and anchor.fm. And one of the things one of my advisors suggested is that we start thanking one every show. We've been trying to do that. So I want to thank Laura Saylor of the Massachusetts Workers Party. She's been a long time supporter of ours, keeping the show going. There is a cost for us. We do have some liability insurance as well as the cost for the StreamYard. So I want to thank Laura Saylor for keeping us going. She's a good friend as well. Again, we're the Young Jerks. We're here every once in a while when we feel like it. There was something else I wanted to talk about too tonight, but I can't even remember. But I should have both asked them, I guess, what can they do to help, them in this fight? Maybe if you live in Haverhill, I think one of the things you should do is contact this Haverhill mayor and the city council and say, hey, what the hell are you doing? Why are you charging so much for fees that aren't real? You're making up stuff. Give them back their money. We're the Young Jerks. I want to thank everyone for being on the show, all our listeners tonight as well, and all our supporters. We'll see you real soon. Next time, Young Jerks, checking out. I'm going to play the video again, too, hopefully, to close the show, if I can. Stop the screen share. I just want to, because I think this is good. I think people need to see the crazy words that the mayor's using up in Haverhill. I might play it a couple times. Good night, everyone.